There's a lot of different types of sounds and atmospheres you can create in jazz, and the modern jazz sound is one of these atmospheres that a lot of students want to create. But how do we do that? There's simple and easy steps that you can start to integrate today to start to create a modern sound. Believe it or not, I'm going to teach you those steps in this particular podcast lesson. My name is Brendan Lowe, creator and founder of Jazz Piano School. If you're interested in taking some further steps, go to jazzpianoschool.com to check out all the other free education we have available. And if you want some more structured education with a step-by-step format, you can check out the membership by going to jazzpianoschool.com/membership. But with that being said, let's dive right in. All right, so here we go. Number one, the very first thing that you can start to do to create a modern sound, fourth voicings in your left hand. Okay, I'll get into what my right hand was doing in just a second, but fourth voicings in your left hand are immediately going to give you a completely different sound than your rootless voicings, than your three-note voicings. Your rootless voicings obviously are going to be used a lot more in bebop. Three-note voicings will be used a lot more in bebop, things like that, shells. Fourth voicings in your left hand are really going to immediately give you that sound. Now let's talk about your fourth voicings in some chords first. So if I'm playing over a C minor 7 like I was just doing, you can move about in different ways. A lot of times I like to use 1, 4, 7. Now I'm not creating or reflecting the sound of the minor third, which you kind of need. So I do like to move up and down to get the minor third in there. So again, on this voicing, I'm hitting the minor third, but I don't have the minor 7. That's okay. You can switch back and forth between the voicings to create the effect of the C minor 7 chord that you're playing, okay? So I have 1, 4, 7 here. I'm just going up diatonically to, again, 2, 5, root, right? I'm just talking in terms of C minor, but again, in terms of the voicing, it's just 1, 4, 7 again. D, G, C. Now here, this is a different type. This isn't perfect fourths anymore. We have E flat, A natural, which is the 13 over our C minor 7, and then we have the 9 on top. So it's a beautiful voicing there. So that's what I like to do. Sometimes I'll move up to this voicing here. Again, you can kind of keep going if you want, but I don't want to go too far. Let's keep it simple, right? You can start to move about and even just maybe stick with one. Just try one voicing. I like to hit this fifth down here. This is like a true McCoy thing to do. Jump up to your voicing here. Maybe shift back down or just jump back down. Hit a different one. And it's completely up to you how you want to express yourself. Now, I use this when I'm improvising in my right hand. So if I'm improvising, right? So obviously you can see I'm kind of jumping about. I'm improvising in my right hand. The next thing, number 2. So that was number 1. Number 2. If you don't want to use fourth voicings, that's okay. You don't have to start to learn new fourth voicings. If you know your rootless voicings, you can start to use them in different ways. Let me go back for a second. I completely forgot about something I wanted to tell you guys. My fourth voicing is over a C minor 7. If I'm improvising over a major 7 chord, like a C major 7, again, this kind of holds true for the major 7, but you don't have as much flexibility as movements because a lot of this stuff is going to give you like kind of some interesting chords. Like this particular fourth voicing isn't the best sounding voicing over a C major 7, so I like to use this one right here. Switch back and forth. I also like to use this and this. So the ones I really avoid over major 7 chords are going to have the fourth in them. Right, so that's going to be 1, 4, 7. That's not going to sound great. Your 2 voicing over the second note of your diatonic major scale will sound good. 3 will sound good. Again, 4, you can get away with it. I've used it before. I don't mind it, but as a beginner, I might stay away from that. Here we go, 5, 1, 4. Again, I'd probably stay away from this. I like this one here. I like this one here too. So I'll bounce around between those when I'm jumping back and forth with my left hand. The next one, the dominant 7 voicing, is actually going to be a sus. So when I'm playing over a C7 chord, most of the time I'm making this a sus chord. And I'm kind of using similar techniques that I was over the C minor 7, but I am going to reharm dominance to make them sus chords, which is going to come up later. Anyway, so that was just kind of revisiting number 1. Number 2, we want to thicken up our rootless voicings. Thick voicings are great for a modern sound, and also thin voicings with clusters. Stuff like this. So if I were to play a C major 7, I might play the shells plus the root there, or I might play the shells plus the 9, or I might play a big thick voicing, like a 5-note voicing. So I'm playing a rootless voicing and I'm adding the 13. I also might add like the 13 and sharp 11. So I might play my 5th down here, jump up to my sharp 11 voicing. Right? So essentially big, thick voicings in your left hand, 5-note voicings with extensions are going to be another way to really thicken up the sound that you're trying to create. Let's go to number 3. I'm going to talk about improvisation now. In bebop, improvisation has a lot of tension and release with different ways to approach chord tones. So if I play a bebop line, right? I had a lot of bobbing and weaving in and around chord tones with different types of bebop approaches. Now, that's what creates the bebop sound. If you're looking for a bebop sound, obviously this is not the video for you because you want to use other techniques and other strategies and other methods. So, when improvising in a more modern sound, we don't usually use bebop approaches. I shouldn't say usually, almost never. You can put them in here and there to reflect the sound of bebop. But a modern jazz sound will take on a more linear approach with different types of patterns with a small groupings of notes. Let's talk about what I mean. So back to my C minor example where I was kind of jumping around with my left hand voicings. In my right hand, I was using a pool of 5 notes, meaning I was choosing from 5 notes, a pentatonic scale. Here is my minor pentatonic scale. 1, 2, 3, flat 3, because I'm improvising over a minor chord. 5, 6. Okay? So, again, 5 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, the note numbers as they relate to the chord scale. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Now, modern jazz and a lot of, again, modern sounds come from different combinations of these notes. And you want to, even though there's 5 notes, you want to think about groupings of 4. So I might go 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my first group. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm really thinking in groupings of 4, even though I have 5 notes to choose from. Okay, now when I'm randomly selecting patterns. There's a whole thing inside of JPS where you can work through all the permeations of these patterns, right? And so on and so forth. And I mean, this is essentially a large rabbit hole of what you're getting into as far as how to connect a lot of these combinations of patterns to create a modern sound. Now, you know, this is just modern basics, right? You don't need to get into that, but if you are interested in that, go to JPS, jazzpianoschool.com/membership, and you can get all that stuff inside the membership. But essentially here, what we're doing, just picking random combinations of these 5 notes and improvising with them. So again. Literally playing random types of movements and jumping back and forth with this particular scale. Now, there's really 2 ways to approach the scale. You can play more linear, or you can play it thinking about patterns, more patternistic, meaning I can jump around a little bit more. Right? And kind of really try to just bounce back and forth, I guess. So when I start to put it together a little bit, again, it starts to sound like what I demonstrated before. so on and so forth. Okay, I did hit a wrong note, right? I hit an F natural at one point, accidentally. That was not in the pentatonic scale, but that's okay. I mean, you can obviously hit notes within the Dorian mode. That's completely okay. I hit an F natural. It's not going to sound bad necessarily, right, at all. Now, there's lots of different ways to use your pentatonic scales. I don't want to get too deep into this because I still want to keep it simple. Your major pentatonic scale is essentially just has a natural 3 in there. So if I was soloing over, a major 7, very easy way for a beginner to get some modern sounds. And again, even if I was soloing like over a C7 and I wanted to use more of a traditional voicing here in my left hand, I could do that. It doesn't necessarily reflect the sound of the flat 7, okay? Using my C major pentatonic scale over a C7 chord, which, it's kind of a preference. You're leaving that note out, but it is an important note. So if I wanted to get that sound, this is going to lead me to another tip that you can use for your pentatonics. And again, this is a deep rabbit hole, guys, okay? All of these types of things are included in Jazz Piano School. But if I switch up my pentatonic scale, let's say I use a G minor pentatonic scale over a C7 chord. Here's my G minor pentatonic scale. 1, 2, flat 3, 5, 6. Now check it out. Here are the notes that I'm playing, and look at how they fit over a C7 chord, right? I get the 5, I get the 13, I get the 7 now, I get the 9, and I get the 3. So I actually have both shells in there. The only thing that's missing is the 4. I don't need that. And the root. So this is actually a pretty good way to think about if you want to create a modern sound over dominant chords, play the minor pentatonic scale that's up a 5th from the dominant chord you're soloing over, right? So if I were to solo over C7, I would think G minor pentatonic. So on and so forth. And again, if I wanted to solo over F7, I could think C minor pentatonic scale. Now you'll notice I was using a 3-note voicing to play this, right? So it sounded, a little mix between a bop style because of my left voicing and my right hand pentatonic. If I wanted to kind of get more of a modern sound out of this, I could switch back and forth between my fourth voicings, but then, guys, guess what? We start to get into, right, our fourth voicing, which creates a sus chord. Now, this pentatonic scale I just showed you isn't necessarily the best thing for that. I'm going to get to what we're going to be known, or what is known, I should say, as hexatonic scales. This is going to be number 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is going to be number 4 in the list. So let's say we're soloing over this fourth voicing now that we want to play. We're creating a reharm out of our C7 chord and making it a sus chord. A sus chord just has the 4 in it instead of the 3. That's it. So now what I can do here is I can play what's known as a hexatonic scale. A hexatonic scale has 6 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, the hexatonic scale that I'm creating here is based off of 2 triads. A flat 7 triad and a 1 major triad. A flat 7 major triad, a B flat triad, and a 1 triad. So I'm pooling those 6 notes together and I'm creating a scale. And just like I did with my pentatonic scale, I can use this in a more scalar motion. Very cool sound, right? Or I can use it more in a patternistic way or a triadic way. So when I'm thinking triadically, I'm going to be thinking about these 2 triads and breaking them up and splitting them. So I might think B flat first in a grouping of 4 notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now I went to my C major triad after that. So I thought B flat major, then I thought C major, and then I'm going to think B flat major, and then I'm going to think C major. You see that? So B flat, don't have to play continuous notes. Obviously, you can break it up. I might go 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4, right? 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3. You can break up your movement. So then I'll sped up a little bit faster. It sounds like this. Whoops. Right, and then a little faster, a little bit more swag. I hit an A natural in there, right, which is out of the scale. That's why I said whoops. 1, 2, 3, 4. So on and so forth. And again, you can kind of mess around with this, different combinations, right? And that's just the improvisation over that one chord. Now, obviously, it takes a little while to get used to this over different types of chords, different sus chords, and merging them together. But that is one of the hexatonic scales that can really start to transform your playing into a modern jazz sound. Now, there's lots of pentatonic scales. There's lots of hexatonic scales. And when I say there's lots of them, there's not really lots of pentatonic scales. You got your major and minor and a couple more. But you can start, like I showed you before, you can start to take different pentatonic scales or even different hexatonic scales and use them over different chords to get different sounds. One such example of this is if I were to take a hexatonic scale that was a 1 major triad and a 2 major triad, this would give me sharp 11, right? A sharp 11 sound and a 13 sound. So if I were to play over a C major 7 chord now, and I were to think about this hexatonic scale, the 1 major triad and 2 triad, so on and so forth. So it gives you lots of different options, lots of different ways. And again, this is a huge, huge rabbit hole, right, that you're going down into modern jazz. But a lot of these simple tricks should help. And again, you can get the full scope of things inside of Jazz Piano School, where I break everything down for you and structure it all out. The other thing that I want to go over here is the transformation of sus chords from dominants. And I've been talking about this a lot already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, this is going to be 5. Sorry, my number system on my notes is all screwed up here. 5, 6, 7. There we go. So this is going to be number 5. A lot of what you hear in jazz is dominant chords transformed into sus chords. So like if I were to play a blues in a more traditional style, so on and so forth. That's not what you would hear, right, in a modern jazz sound. Now, the reason for that is because you would hear sus chords, right? And you would hear a sus chord on the 4 probably. These are 4th voicings I'm using in my right hand, right and left hand, right? So this is really what you would hear over a modern blues. You would hear sus chords. So when you can transform any dominant chord really into a sus chord. It's okay even if it's in a 2-5-1, or if you're taking an old jazz standard and kind of reharming some of the dominant chords into sus chords. But that particular tool and strategy in and of itself is going to already create new sounds. So just take your dominant chords, make them sus, and that's going to give you a modern sound. The last 2 things I want to cover are extensions. Extensions are just much more prevalent in different ways. I shouldn't say they're more prevalent, or like, extensions happen a lot in bebop too, but different types of extensions, I would say they're really focused on in modern jazz, like the 9s, the 11s, the 13s, like over a G minor chord, right? Miles really started messing around with these 13s and sitting on them, sitting on 9s, sitting on 11s. Herbie, right? He was doing all sorts of extensions on a lot of the dominant chords, different types of scales and things like that. So I don't want to get that deep into that, right? This is already kind of going pretty long, but focus on utilizing different types of extensions. Like instead of just playing a bebop line like, I might really sit on an extension or play it and emphasize it while my left hand is kind of emphasizing the extensions that I'm going after. My left hand is also going to add in like a lot more extensions in my voicing. So I have the sharp 11th, natural 13, 9 here, so I might mess around with those extensions in my right hand in different types of patterns or different types of odd ways. Right? This is clearly out. Like, this does not sound like bebop, okay? And I mean, you could probably call this something and put a name to it. Oh, that's the blah, 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 right? You can analyze it in a lot of different ways. That's not what I'm trying to teach you right now. I'm just trying to say, pick some extensions that fit over your chord. So if I'm playing over a C7, don't just use a regular rootless voicing. Throw the sharp 11 in there. Throw the 9 in there. Throw the 13 in there. Plump it up with extensions, and then take your right hand and look at the extensions you're playing and start to mess around with the extensions and really land on them and emphasize them in your solo. Bebop is all about hitting chord tones and coming in and out and around chord tones. Modern jazz, you can sit on extensions for your whole solo. That's what's going to create a good modern sound. And finally, an open time feel, okay? And this is usually done mostly when you're improvising. When you sit on a chord and just let the time pass, that's going to open up the time, right? Bebop is really about the swinging eighth notes and the chord notes. Like nothing stops. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and triple, let triple, let triple, let triple, right? It's just, you're really hearing that time. It's consistent. It doesn't really stop. Modern jazz really takes on an open time feel. Now, the time is consistent underneath, but we just feel it in a different way. So instead of feeling all 4 quarter notes, I'm actually going to feel more like half notes or whole notes even. So I might feel... Right? So what I'm feeling really now is just 1. 1. I'm not feeling 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the swing feel. That's a traditional. The time and like space really start to kind of warp again. If you check out, obviously Keith Jarrett, Brad Meldau, the way the drummer's playing, the way they're playing, Herbie, stuff starts to really open up because they're feeling the time and stretching it in different ways. Although there is the time underneath. Like you can still subdivide it into 4 beats. If you subdivide it into half notes or whole notes, meaning you feel it, you only feel 2 beats per measure, like 1, 3, 1, 3. That's going to open up your playing. And then, like I was just trying to feel it right now, I was thinking 1, 1, 1. I'm just playing a 2, 5, 1, 6 in the key of F. 1, 1, 1. 1, because everything in the middle now is space, and you can play and mess around with different ways in that space, and it takes on a much more open feel. All right, let's go back through these real quick. Left hand fourths comping, okay? Number 2, thick left hand voicings and extensions, right? Or like the one I was just showing you over the dominant chord, or kind of small clusters. That's a cool one for a minor 7 voicing. I use this a lot, right? Or this. That's a really cool one. These kind of rubs and clusters give you really cool modern sound. Your pentatonic scale in your right hand. Major, minor. Okay? Your hexatonic scale, I didn't give you too many. There's lots and lots more, right? But there's no way I could pack it all in. Your hexatonic scale, I gave you the sus. Okay, so on and so forth. And then reharm your dominants to become sus chords. Okay? Extensions, right? Really landing on extensions, messing around with extensions. So on and so forth. Woo. And then opening up the time. Opening up the time, really trying to take a jazz standard like Autumn Leaves. Instead of feeling 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, just feel. And again, you'll hear this a lot. Autumn Leaves can be played more traditionally or more modern as well. But open up the time, subdivide the time not into 4 beats, into half notes and whole notes, and that will really change in the effective play. Okay? If you guys enjoyed this content, again, all this is structured inside of Jazz Piano School. Go to jazzpianoschool.com/membership to check out all the information that we have available if you are interested in joining. With that being said, I'll talk to you guys later. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Don't forget to go to jazzpianoschool.com to check out all of our free, amazing education, all of the free podcast blogs. We do have a membership if you're looking to take a next step forward with us, get access to over 1,000 different jazz piano videos, playbooks, mini courses, a main course curriculum, success path, and so much more. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at support@jazzpianoschool.com. I hope you have a wonderful day, and as always, happy practicing.